NEAR is an L1, but it could provide more. Like it is, it's these things like the notions of being an L1 is not just limited to just having the properties of an L1. You can actually do more things with an L1 that's flexible. So, that aligns with kind of the boss vision, which is kind of the front ends that could be written on NEAR, to a point that even other chains can use some portion of NEAR to do whatever they want to do with their own sort of blockchain architecture.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to Chorus One podcast. We're very excited tonight. We have Altan from NEAR today to explore a lot of new things going on in this ecosystem that's been around for a bit. So, thank you so much, Altan. Welcome to the Chorus One podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. So the idea for today is we'd like to start with a brief intro about you and your background, so our listeners can familiarize with your story. And then also wanted to you to give us a brief overview of what is your role and main responsibility in the NEAR protocol.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Altan. Grew up in Turkey, moved to the United States when I was 18. So studied computer science and math, and then did my master's in computer science as well. But actually ended up doing business development. So I did start my career in VC. I worked at Antler, which is one of the biggest early stage global venture funds, and then joined NEAR Foundation, which is the sort of the shepherd of the NEAR ecosystem and the protocol in November 2022. So I'm getting close to, I guess, like a year and two months now at NEAR Foundation. Always been interested in sort of simulations in my academic work as well. So I've started with doing a lot of virtual reality, ended up doing part of that, just doing AI ML work, like training robots in simulations and taking that to the real world zero shot, and kind of ended up crypto that way. It's just crypto for me has always been sort of, and blockchains as well, that incentive mechanism for that simulation and virtual worlds, and that kind of pulled me in. And currently I'm working in the foundation as a senior technical BD, but started working as a partner engineer, which is more of like a solutions engineer, but started focusing myself onto more strategic initiatives since August, and been doing a couple of the projects that we announced in November in NEARCon.
Great. Yeah, we would definitely jump into a little bit more of details on everything that was announced during NEARCon. Very excited about that. But I'm really curious about, what do you consider to be business development nowadays in crypto, and for L1 like NEAR? What is your focus when you think about what you need to be developed?
Yeah, it's very multifaceted. I think that's a good question. So business development in an L1 is quite different than a business development in let's say, a SaaS organization. So for us, I think it's been mainly trying to figure out what the strategy is. Like for my role, at least in the last sort of 4 or 5 months, is to how do we make NEAR L1 useful for what's going on in the space, right? So we've been sort of shaping that with the latest stuff that's coming up. Obviously, it is a bit of a harder role than a traditional business development role as well, because in a sense that in my role especially, you'll have to keep up with what's going on in the technical world, and what's going on with Celestia and the data availability sampling or all these other cool stuff. But also, you need to understand what the narrative is, right? So narrative changes quite fast in crypto. It's one of these things that something will happen, and latest things with Solana, there was bad sentiment about Solana. Something happens and totally the sentiment changes towards something else. So keeping up with these is kind of the challenging part of a business developer like myself. But I mean, there's also the fun part is a sort of it's very dynamic, right? That things change, and there's really smart people that you interact with on on the business development side, but also on the product and engineering side as well, that has that pulls you into thinking differently that you usually don't. So yeah, that kind of like it is a challenging job, but I kind of like it.
Yeah, I totally understand. I think this is like everyone that works in crypto totally relates to that, because the concept of a startup is just levered to the maximum when it comes to crypto. It's like there is no really right and wrong or a recipe to what is like to how success looks like. So it's definitely it's, in my opinion, it's like where it interacts with art. I think we're all like doing some kind of art nowadays.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting because, like, I guess a lot of protocol founders and people that worked in, you know, as engineers and started protocols are engineers. So it's kind of, and myself, I was trained as an engineer. So thinking that this is not science but arts is the tough part, right? I mean, if you work for a SaaS company, or any other sort of a social media company, your metrics are very like kind of standardized in a way, right? Like you think about a revenue, you think about, I don't know, like retention metrics, and those metrics don't apply to where we work. I mean, it's quite different. So that discussion of all of this being art is definitely fair.
That's true. Even like when it comes to the infrastructure and the skills that we need to develop and train our teams and stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I'd like to mention here the last edition of the quarterly insights report that we wrote. We write like every quarter, and the last one, I write this specific report called the ecosystem review, and we covered NEAR, and it was very interesting because the narrative seems to be changing for NEAR. So now, well, what we found, like in technical terms, in summary, is that NEAR is layer 1 sharded proof of stake blockchain, delegated proof of stake, which is good. And in practical terms, it's targeting to become the operating system for an open web. This is something that is not 100% clear to me. So first question on that would be, why would the project choose NEAR? Is there like a specific niche which would benefit the most of the NEAR's characteristics, or like what is the direction, the main direction for the NEAR Foundation now?
Yeah, so if you look at the deals, what we've the projects that were launched on NEAR over sort of a year or two now, you see sort of a general trend, which is, if you look at Sweatcoin and Cosmos, they're very consumer friendly, and they require a scalable blockchain. And let's roll back and start with Sweatcoin. So Sweatcoin launched in Ethereum and bridged to NEAR later on, and the simpler reason for that was NEAR being sharded. So NEAR currently runs 4 shards, and for a project like Sweatcoin that had roughly around like 25 million users in sort of their original app, and translating that to crypto to having 1 million monthly active users, they need to ensure that their gas fees are reliable, and we've proven that. So we've launched like in 2 days, we've created roughly around 17 to like 20 million accounts. And of those, like obviously there's a retention metric there because it's a Web2 mobile app. So they have been running on NEAR for almost like a year and a half now, which is great. And then you look at Cosmos, which is the Cosmos AI, not the Cosmos, the chain. They are actually, so they have a token that's called KaiKai, which is a loyalty token. So if you were to spend something in their ecosystem, you get a KaiKai, and you can spend that to buy a coffee in Singapore. And the latest product they've done is a lock screen product on the Oppo phones in Southeast Asia. So that means anybody that's like, not anybody, but a small portion of people that are using Oppo phones in Southeast Asia actually interact with NEAR blockchain, just like interacting with a lock screen. So that is very clear to me, is that the partners that require low cost scalable blockchain, like NEAR is a great choice for that. But then what we've realized over time is the technology we built is useful for a lot of different things. So I mean, that comes with our sort of some of the work we're doing for the Ethereum ecosystem. it is very cheap for data too. So one of the problems with Ethereum scaling, and I think a lot of people know this in the working in crypto space, is that posting data on Ethereum is quite expensive, what people call data. So what NEAR can do is to provide that data cheaply, and then you commit to that data. I mean, it's pretty mathematical that it is there, and then settle on Ethereum. So that's one of the work that we've done. But the main thing is we're a highly scalable blockchain that is fairly flexible for any use case that you think about, which ties into the open web. Like you can build anything in the internet today with a blockchain that's open and transparent, right? So we have decentralized front ends, which kind of aligns with that. So you don't have to write your front end code on GitHub. You can write on a NEAR blockchain and show that sort of front end code from NEAR. So there's a lot of examples like that where we believe that the full stack of the internet, like starting from the backend server, if you want to think about that, towards like going up until the user perspective could be built on a blockchain. But yeah, that kind of summarizes up also the sort of the blockchain operating system vision as well. Like leaving all that technical jargon, it makes easier for people to build open web components or any component of the web today in an open web fashion.
Yeah, it is amazing actually, because when I looked into it briefly, and just by seeing how easy it is, like to copy, to reuse things that were built already, and that also that you can like interact with different ecosystems, I think this unlocks a huge potential for adoption in general. And then I was wondering, you mentioned this project that was the project I first heard of while I was writing the ecosystem review, because we saw a huge spike in the activity in NEAR compared to all blockchains that we were looking. We even have like a plot in this article for anyone who is interested. We will leave the link on the video in the description. So I was wondering, so what is KaiKai in terms of topology? It's just like a set of smart contracts on top of NEAR, or how is it organized? It is leveraging the L1, or is it modular in any way?
No, it uses the L1. It is just a fungible token today. So they, every time somebody does something in the KaiKai ecosystem, they just get minted KaiKai tokens that they can claim back, and then they can use that in the real world. I mean, the story behind that was that the founder, Miran, who's very smart entrepreneur, he came to us and said, I'm paying a lot of money to Stripe for microtransactions to pay people back. So I'm thinking about using a blockchain rather than make that cheaper. So that's how it came about for us, is that they actually came to NEAR testnet without us even knowing, and then started to kind of realize, oh well, this is an interesting use case that we can kind of work towards implementing it. So that's kind of the vision there, is that you should be able to, and the good thing about it is that like the products that are not just one country, but like a couple of countries like themselves, like in Vietnam or all these that they've started with, now they're expanding to Europe, is like, how do you move so kind of value across these countries without even paying anything in the Visa network or MasterCard network or the other sort of traditional banking networks?
Yeah, and there's one particular aspect that I think it makes it like a very successful real use case that is not only, let's say, speculation or trading side. It is like a case of adoption in which users are actually not aware at all of what a blockchain is or what a wallet is. So yeah, I don't know. This is, do you think this would be like the end game for the function of a blockchain in our society?
Yeah, this is a very good question. So we've actually started a bit of our push in Twitter about this as well, which we call kind of, a lot of people actually, Vitalik is even thinking about this. He talked about it in the latest Bankless podcast, but we call it chain abstraction. So like, how do you abstract the chain fully. And that's how we started. I mean, the whole vision and the white paper of NEAR protocol talks about, open web, usability. So that's kind of the end game for us. Like if we think about 2024, obviously crypto changes quite fast, but we're thinking about like, how do we abstract all these wallets and in a world that's not only one blockchain, 5 L1s, 10 L1s, 100 L1s, but 100 L1s plus 100 L2s and L2s growing, how do you ensure that you abstract all these, like the bridging stuff? What if, like, I don't know, the two apps that are built on different ecosystems and then the user gets stuck in there and things like that, where we're still thinking actively as to how we can solve these things. So I would say the end game for us in 2024, I think, is going to be around that theme that resonates not only with, I guess, it definitely resonates with the crypto crowd, because if you're buying something in Solana and want to swap that over to Ethereum, it's not that simple. But also it definitely resonates with the simple user, where they only just, I mean, the trend of a simple user is just to use Kraken or Coinbase to buy and sell tokens, right? I mean, that's what the interaction is. And I guess, like, if we can take all the DeFi activity and on-chain activity kind of in that direction that aligns with the user as well, I think everyone will benefit.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's still a bit sad that these details are still so hard to handle in both dimensions, actually. One is like the interoperability, although there are just so many projects building around that, it is still a little bit of a pain. If you really don't understand what is going on, there's a big chance that you can just lose your tokens and, get a bridge that is not real. And yeah, this is a shame, actually. And also this wallets, the complexity for users to keep wallets. So yeah, I'm very, just to see all this use around KaiKai and the NEAR activity growing up. Yeah, that's amazing. And then I was wondering, so there is this huge trend on the app chain thesis that we can say that started on Cosmos, right? With all the Cosmos and IBC making that so easy for different blockchains to interact with each other, and just making easier also for applications to build their own blockchain, self-sovereign blockchain. And then these things are kind of mixing up right now, right? Like the app-chain thesis is not proving itself completely successful, or not easy at all, at least at the and then a lot of roll-ups spinning up on Ethereum. So what is your vision, or the NEAR Foundation's vision? Then I don't know if you're free to state what you prefer, around the modularity thesis and how NEAR is positioning itself around that. Because, for example, I know you've mentioned, by the way, during the last NEARCon here in Lisbon, that I'm actually, by the way, wearing the swag.
Cool, yeah, I see that one from NEARCon. Yeah.
They announced a partnership with Dimension. That is a project that we were following up since the early days they were building, that makes so easy to spin up roll-ups, right? And so I was wondering, what is NEAR strategy around that modularity path?
Yeah, let me give that sort of why NEAR modularity, and then deep dive into like how are we thinking about it. So I guess if we roll back to 2018, 2019, when NEAR was founded, Ilya and Alex founded NEAR in a very sort of simple thesis, is that they just didn't like the way they actually wanted to build Ethereum's sharding roadmap, and then decided later on that they wanted to build their own L1. So came with the vision that we'll always be sharded, and the way to kind of scale a blockchain is horizontal, not vertical, right? So that's how we started. And with that, we've built a lot of sort of like, if you think about the modularity thesis of execution, like execution, settlement, consensus, and data availability layer. So we built all that sort of components a bit robust, right? Data availability for us has been that you have built a very robust, like a scalable data availability where you can just dump a lot of data. You also built a lot of sort of execution, which is our execution environments WASM compared to, Cosm WASM and the other folks as well, which is a bit of a way more flexible environment than EVM, because when you start to do even zero knowledge on EVM, you get stuck with the opcode. So, that's been the challenge that a lot of the ZK EVM folks have been trying to do that. So, the LDR of like NEAR's existence has always been sort of this, in a sense of like, how do we build all these? Same as consensus, by the way. How do we build all these things very, very robust? And then when the modularity thesis was coming along, like we asked ourselves, like, how do we take our components and make it useful for everyone? And that comes with NEAR DA, which is actually 8,000 times cheaper than Ethereum and 100 times cheaper than Celestia. So we've actually optimized it quite for low cost and reliability as well, because our gas fee model is very sort of flat compared to other sort of players in the market. Then opening that up for rollups, obviously. Then we started working with, I guess, Polygon, which we because we're the experts in WASM, we said, let's just build ZK WASM for rollups. If somebody wants to use a WASM environment in a rollup, they can easily use that in a ZK fashion and settle on Ethereum. And the third one is like, okay, let's just take that world of a lot of rollups. One of the problems now is that when two rollups want to communicate, they need to settle on Ethereum for 12 minutes. What we can do is with EigenLayer is that we can create a new layer that gets Ethereum security, but instead uses NEAR's consensus, which is way faster. So like 2 to 3 minutes, 3 to 3 seconds, and let some of them, this is something we're building still and in Q1, let them sort of settle onto that layer so that they can communicate more effectively. So, and then in that vision, I guess the best would be that just like in a monolithic L1, when you send a transaction, everything happens on a one block so that all the apps kind of agree on that state. But that's obviously the harder problem is too, because all the other L2s have a different configurations. So just to sum up, like how do we think about this is that NEAR DA as the kind of the highly scalable and reliable and cheap data availability layer, and then execution environment for others to use it to build an L2, and then on top of that, just to secure some of that Ethereum security and build what we call as sort of a finality settlement layer. So. And then how do we work with partners? I guess you mentioned Dimension, which is one of our sort of roll-up as a service partners. They kind of make it easy for everybody to sort of spin up chains. The way we've started working is we've announced a lot of partnerships with roll-up as a service providers like themselves and Caldera, Outlayer, soon to come, and working with them to kind of integrate with their partners, but also eventually going after some of the known L2s as well. That's kind of the roadmap of where we're trying to go, as to show like that NEAR can scale Ethereum.
Yeah, makes sense. That's a lot of things actually. I was wondering what it comes in terms of priority for a new project that comes to you guys and say, we want to deploy a NEAR, but we don't want to be an app on L1. We would like to have our own chain. And then this would be the case where you would direct them to like perhaps spin up their own rollup, for example, and then the execution would happen on this rollup as a service layers, or
no, it would happen on a rollup. It would happen on a rollup. So rollup as a service providers will build that rollup for them, but then execution would happen could happen on EVM, could happen on any. Yeah. I mean, there's ZK WASM as well. That will come late in next year, and then settlement will happen on Ethereum. and then data availability will happen on NEAR, right? So then, that's the sort of the three kind of modularity.
Is this like a default stack? Or the project can still choose like to settle, for example, on NEAR? Why not setting up on NEAR, for example?
The reason for that is that the market favored the settlement NEAR to be Ethereum, right? I mean, this is probably the biggest sort of
price of security.
I mean, NEAR has its own validator set. We have like 200 validators. But obviously, Ethereum has been sort of leading that charge in terms of like decentralized validator set and security as well. So we kind of for this sort of modularity, kind of it is better for rollups to settle on Ethereum, which makes them an Ethereum rollup versus, I guess, if they were to set the reason why I guess NEAR settlement wouldn't make sense is because if people want NEAR settlement, it's probably way better to build on L1 than a new L2. But essentially, I mean, the way it's like also NEAR is designed is that kind of every smart contract is almost like a roll up by itself, because they all just like need to the notion of asynchronity, which is just that a lot of smart contracts designed to live on different shards, right? So I mean, it was built from ground up to really think that if there's like 1 billion users and there's a lot of people using NEAR, and eventually those one smart contract or a wallet will end up in its own shard, let's say.
That's very interesting. It's also similar with the structure of the Solana idea of like the state that they were implementing. Not sure it is yet implemented, but I think there's a lot of potential there on that direction. In this case, NEAR would be mostly for data availability for this case. Yeah, but I was thinking actually that by doing that, you also open up a lot of possibilities of new projects that are built on other VMs to easily migrate or expand also to the NEAR ecosystem, right?
Yeah. The main thesis here is that NEAR is an L1, but it could provide more. Like it is, these things like the notions of being an L1 is not just limited to just having the properties of an L1. You can actually do more things with an L1 that's flexible. So I mean that aligns with kind of the boss vision, which is kind of the front ends that could be written on NEAR, to a point that even other chains can use some portion of NEAR to do whatever they want to do with their own sort of blockchain architecture.
That's impressive, isn't it? I get only more and more excited. But then I started thinking on the validator side, because of course Chorus One is a validator on NEAR since early days. Is there a bottleneck on the validator on the infrastructure at any point? Because as soon as NEAR is like very fast and cheap, people can just start overloading the data in the chain. How do you avoid the ledger to become like so big? I imagine all validators still need to keep a copy of all the shards, or can you explain a little bit of that?
Yeah, so currently the way it works is that's correct. So some of the validators actually need to check all the shards, which is a bottleneck in some way. But they're actually I've written a good thread about this. So our head of protocol, Bowen, talked about the new updates that will come to NEAR, which is sort of what we call start site and stateless validators. So what stateless validators will allow is that there will be some new addition of validators that are not taking, they're not like looking at, they don't have to like track the whole chain. So they're stateless by definition. And then the other part is start site, which is basically trying to introduce zero knowledge to the protocol. So some of the work that obviously zero knowledge does is you've done some compute that others, you don't have to, you've done some compute and you want to prove to the other party that you've done that compute, which is a lot of the validators do. They just download that sort of state and then kind of run that state and prove that that's Correct, right? So the way currently NEAR protocol works is that you provide a proof that you run that update, but it's a Merkle proof. It's bigger, so you have to run, and this comes with the decentralization of number of nodes as well. That's running on NEAR. What you can do is essentially introduce sort of like a zero knowledge to essentially just prove that you've done some compute. So you can actually increase the validator set with less sort of strict hardware requirements. But that's on the way, and it's still sort of like it's in the roadmap for next year.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Okay, thanks for sharing that. As I think a last point on my side would be, I'd like to mention the NEARCon again now a little bit. Like, let's expand on that. We have briefly mentioned before, but there were like a lot of announcements there. We already talked about DA and KaiKai. Is there anything else that you thought like was really interesting, that really added a lot of value? Because in my vision as a user, I was really thrilled by the app, because you like everyone who had a ticket had a link to an app, and this app would already create a user with your username that was under the NEAR name system. So I imagine that was like already in the blockchain. And there was even a native token through the conference that users could use to get the merch, to get food, whatever. That was really nice, in my opinion. So yeah, I'd like to hear, like, on your side, what was the highlights of the conference?
Yeah, I mean, my NEAR journey started with NEARCon 2022. So I was actually a hacker at NEARCon 2022. It was quite different in a sense. I mean, starting from the vibes, really, like it was, the NEARCon 2022 was still the end of kind of bull market. Like you had that feel, and then I guess 2023 was like before that started like it was probably, I mean, I'm looking at hindsight, it's probably like the deepest kind of like, it was kind of deep bear market. Now we started to see a bit more uptick in everything and sentiment as well. I like the fact that it was more targeted in some way. Like, it was more of, I was able to see more projects building on NEAR than last, although it was way more crowded. So that probably tells you like there was more noise in 2022 than 2023. And a lot of people was there kind of like a bit more, they already chose NEAR because, I mean, there's certain properties of NEAR and the certain things, but that didn't feel like in 2022. So in terms of the announcements, I guess, I mean, they were all well taken, I think, from the market, and a lot of the user side and everything. That was quite fun. And obviously in 2022, we didn't have an app for like NCon, which was kind of interesting. So, I mean, NCon app is built, front end is built on NEAR. So it was built by Jutsu AI, which is one of our sort of ecosystem projects that's doing a integrated development environment for the decentralized front ends. And it was quite interesting because, I mean, when some of the talks finished, like everybody was just like, "Hey, I need to get these NCons," and it was like more of an airdrop, but airdrop in a real sense, not like a fake user sense. I mean, you're there and listening. So that was interesting. I think it was very well taken, and a lot of people asked like, "Oh, like, why don't we do this in other hackathons?" Like, which I agree. So the messaging was built by, I think, Calimero, which is another sort of a private shard on NEAR, that like all of your messaging is encrypted and built onto their shard, which is like another shard that has a bridge to NEAR, that's kind of a fork of a shard on NEAR, but just fully private. So that was quite interesting to see. Like, all of that app was just taken care of by the whole ecosystem participants, which makes a lot of people happy, because it's just like, it's, you contribute to that conference. So I think that was a success. Like, that app was definitely a success. I think announcements were a success. No, I mean, the only thing that I guess like it was hard for attendee as well. That was like 3 different venues that you have to kind of. This also Solana had it when they first did their Lisbon one. Is like 3 different venues that you kind of have to change, which kind of dilutes the whole experience. Like for a lot of people that they don't see the hackers and stuff like that. But that's definitely feedback for the events team. But yeah, that's kind of the everybody was quite happy that we pulled it off.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the vibes were really good. I really enjoyed being there, attending. Also participated on a panel, and everything just worked like so smoothly. It was really good. Really good to see.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think we're running out of time, so I'd like to ask you, like, is there anything that you would like to share with the community? Any message, or just we can finalize here? Otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is, I guess, if you have any questions in regards to these things, they're pretty technical. My job has always been kind of, I mean, my voluntary job has always been kind of taking these and distilling them. So I've been kind of writing some of the further like Twitter threads about these stuff, like the stateless validators that I mentioned. NEAR DA. What is NEAR DA? Actually, got all of them got a lot of sort of views and engagement, which a lot of people are interested in what NEAR offers, because we have a bit of a reputation as like being a very like nicely designed L1. So a lot of people just kind of listen to that. And yeah, like if anybody has a question, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. So that's what I do every single day.
It's amazing to see how like all the possibilities that a fast and cheap blockchain brings. It's amazing. Yeah, that's very exciting. Thank you so much, Altan, for the time and for sharing everything here. That was really, really insightful. I hope everyone enjoyed as well. And yeah, we catch up soon. Thanks.
Yeah, nice to see you soon. Bye.